A very good morning, and it's a pleasure to have you join us on today's edition of Political Spectrum Alive on Spectrum Television. I am Raymond Ita. It's a day after the transition of power ceremony came and has gone. Nigeria does have a new president, and it's Bola Ahmed Tinubu, winner of the February 25 presidential election as declared by INEC, who was yesterday sworn in by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Olukayode Ariwola, at a ceremony at the Eagle Square in Abuja, attended by the political creme de la creme and the ruling class in the country, including invited dignitaries and guests from across Nigeria. It appears the renewed hope mandate of the new president has already caught through the feelings and eye of some Nigerians. Most of them have said after governance or after election comes governance, and it's about time everyone join hands with the new president to chart a new course forward for the country. But there are dissenting voices who still claim it's a mandate that was wrongly claimed as a fallout from the just concluded recent elections in the country. But attacks before the new president will form the basis of our discussion as we progress on Political Spectrum this morning. Well, later, I'll be joined by public affairs and political analyst Paulina Sumo to talk us through the aftermath of yesterday's inauguration ceremony. Let's take a ride when we come back from this break. We're starting off with a regular roundup of the day's biggest political news stories and events. But that will be after this break. Do stay with us.
May I have your permission to march off the colors and rest of the parade, Your Excellency?
Presidential permission has been sought and graciously granted there by His Excellency, the Special Guest of Honor, which brings us to the end of today's unique and historic occasion, which is the swearing-in ceremony of the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal.
Welcome back, and we begin in the nation's capital, Abuja, where after a grueling electioneering process that spanned several months, Nigeria now has a new president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces who will steer the ship of the country for the next 4 years. Well, he is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a former Lagos state governor who was inaugurated as Nigeria's 16th president yesterday, Monday, May 29, at the Eagle Square in Abuja. A Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, administered the oath of office to Tinubu and his deputy, Kashim Shettima, at exactly 10:28 a.m. and 10:38 a.m. respectively. A majestic parade by smartly dressed members of the armed forces also preceded the oath-taking and the swearing-in ceremony, which was witnessed by Tinubu's predecessors, including Muhammadu Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan. While African leaders who witnessed the historic event yesterday at the venue were the new Prime Minister of Gabon, Billy Banze, President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara, Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo, and Paul Kagame of Rwanda. But after the fanfare and pleasure comes the hard work and business, and so with the rising unemployment, soaring inflation, and a wobbling forex exchange rate, as well as worsening insecurity amongst Nigeria's hydra-headed and multifarious challenges, over 200 million Nigerians, of course, expect a lot from President Tinubu. Well, the course of his 80-page manifesto highlights an 8-point agenda that has promised to be fair to all Nigerians. And during the inauguration address yesterday, Tinubu vowed to rid the country of terrorism and criminality, but most importantly, was the all-surprising announcement that the subsidy regime has been stopped. So it was a colorful and delightful ceremony, of course, yesterday, and we'll see how well Tinubu gets to the task of governing Nigeria. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has appointed Kunle Adeleke as the President's State Chief of Protocol scope following his inauguration at the Eagle Square yesterday. Tinubu also appointed Dele Alake, a former Commissioner of Information and Strategy in Lagos, as his official spokesperson. Similarly, the President also appointed Olusegun Dada as the Special Assistant to the President on Digital Media. Elsewhere, the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, has congratulated President Bola Tinubu on his inauguration, describing it as a momentous occasion. The organization told him that with the plethora of challenges facing the country, it is clear that there is much work to be done in order to ensure that Nigeria can reach its full potential. CAN President Archbishop Daniel Okor made the remark in a statement titled Tinubu's Inauguration, a New Chapter for Nigeria. Now, reports say this is the first official congratulatory message from the religious body since he was made or declared president by INEC. Let's move on. In the meantime, U.S. President Joe Biden has promised to work with President Bola Tinubu to deliver a more peaceful and prosperous future for the world. In a statement, Biden extended warm wishes to the government and the people of Nigeria. Well, according to him, his administration has worked to strengthen the ties between the United States and Nigeria. And in a related development, the Labour Party has lambasted President Bola Tinubu over his inaugural address. The National Publicity Secretary of the Labour Party, Obiora, made this known in a party's official response to President Tinubu's inaugural speech in Abuja yesterday. Now, the opposition party said the president failed to provide a clear roadmap about how his administration intends to navigate Nigeria out of its current socio-economic despair. It also said the presidential address exposed the shallowness and policy that his administration had, and said while it lasts, it was hoping to bequeath this to Nigerians. Well, they further said that the elections announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, did not meet constitutional requirements, and also berated the president for describing the election that brought him to power as tough but fairly won. Now, the Labour Party called on Nigerians not to allow the government any space to toil with the destiny of the nation again. Meanwhile, fuel queues returned to Nigerian cities yesterday as many motorists scrambled to get petroleum products just hours after Bola Tinubu announced that the government will put an end to the fuel subsidy regime. Now, in his inaugural address at the Eagle Square, Abuja, Tinubu declared that there would be no longer a petroleum subsidy regime, as it was not sustainable. Now, he said the current 2023 budget only has provision for the fuel subsidy till the month of June, and added that the funds meant for subsidies will be diverted to creating public infrastructure, education, healthcare, as well as jobs. Now, he also commended the decision of the outgoing administration in phasing out the petrol subsidy regime, which he alleged has increasingly favored the rich more than the poor, noting that subsidy can no longer justify its ever-increasing cost in the wake of drying resources. However, just hours after that declaration was made, fuel queues resurfaced in major cities across Nigeria amid uncertainty over the effects of the new policy. Now, across the nation's capital city, some filling stations were under lock and key, while some were besieged by motorists, tricycle owners, as well as private and commercial drivers. Meanwhile, Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, says the decision to remove subsidy on petrol, popularly called fuel, by President Bola Tinubu is a welcome development. Now, the Group Chief Executive Officer, Mele Kyari, made this known at the NNPC Limited Towers in Abuja while briefing journalists late yesterday after the pronouncement by the President. Tinubu at his inauguration yesterday as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria said the subsidy regime will end with the commencement of his administration. Mele Kyari, while addressing journalists, said the removal of subsidy, which had been a burden on the NNPC's cash flow, will actually free up funds to enable optimal operations in the company. Well, he said subsidy has been a major challenge for the NNPC's continuous operations, and also noted that it will likely free up resources to help the company work and also function as a commercial entity. But reacting to the queues and the scarcity already being experienced across the country, Kyari assured Nigerians of a sufficient supply of products, particularly petrol, adding that the company has over 30 days of petrol storage and supply. And he also said there was no reason for Nigerians to panic, and also appealed to them not to be scared or indulge in panic buying. Let's come back to Akwa Ibom State, where Pastor Umar Basiano has been sworn in as the 5th civilian governor of Akwa Ibom State. Senator Akadeyai was also sworn in as the deputy governor of the state. Chief Judge of the state, Justice Ekaito Obot, administered the oath of office and the oath of allegiance on Pastor Moina and Senator Ayahi at the Nest of Champions. In his inaugural address, the new governor of the state, Pastor Moina, said his administration will create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive in the state, while massively investing in agriculture as a way of creating employment and income for the people. Pastor Moina promised to complete all ongoing projects and also expand infrastructures to all parts of the state, as well as continue with what he called the Christ-centric government promoted by the immediate past administration of Udom Emmanuel. But the governor charged the political class to close ranks and work with his administration to help develop the state. And we wrap up our updates on a rather sad note, as a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and founder of Dark Communications PLC, Raymond Dukwesi, has died in a hospital in Abuja yesterday. Now, according to information from his family, signed by his son, Raymond Dukwesi Jr., the media guru had suffered a stroke shortly after the recent Ramadan fast and had been managing his health since before his death yesterday. In his reaction, President Bola Tinubu mourned the death of Raymond Dukwesi, saying he would be sorely missed. Tinubu's condolence message was contained in a statement issued in Abuja by his media officer, Abdulaziz. Well, also, the People's Democratic Party, which Raymond Dukwesi belonged to, said it was devastated by the deaths of one of its leading lights and a member of the Board of Trustees and National Executive Committee of the party, as well as a media mogul and statesman. The National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Debo Logunagba, said Dukwesi was an exceptionally committed and courageous nationalist, as well as an insightful and a loyal party man, also described as a brilliant and resourceful entrepreneur who has steadfastly contributed towards the unity, stability, and development of the PDP as a party and, of course, the country. The PDP added that the late media mogul was a detribalized Nigerian who puts the interest and well-being of the nation above every other consideration and made numerous positive landmarks in the national political, economic, and social landscapes. There's no question the late Raymond Dukwesi would clearly be missed by not just members of the PDP, but those within the media industry as well, who were hinted by the shocking news about his demise yesterday. Well, moving away from that, let's focus on arguably the icing on the cake, and that's the big news that Nigeria does have a new president, the 16th in the annals of the nation's history, and the tax before the man is humongous, huge, but how he is expected to navigate all through this will form the basis of our discussion on burning stories. A new era beckons for Nigeria under the Jagaban of Africa. How well will he fare? We'll find out when we come back.
Federal Republic of Nigeria, I will discharge my duties
perform my functions honestly, to the best of my ability, and faithfully in accordance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law. That I will abide by the Code of Conduct contained in the 5th schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That I will not allow my personal interest to influence my official conduct or my official decisions. That I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So, MP go. Just like her predecessor, we heartily welcome the 16th First Lady Federal Republic of Nigeria, Her Excellency, Senator Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu, wife of the 16th President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, an educationist, administrator, and philanthropist Oluremi Tinubu, as First Lady of Lagos State, established Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Your Excellency!
Your Excellencies, most distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, that was the voice of the parade commander, Lieutenant Colonel Salim Yusuf Hassan, reporting the state of the parade to the special guest of honor and requesting for the inspection of the various guards. At this point, permit me to hand over the microphone to my co-compare, Flight Lieutenant First Zezeni, to guide us through the inspection of the various guards.
Thank you very much, Captain Godfrey Anebi Abapa, for the commentary so far. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I acquaint you with the citation on His Excellency, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic. The special guest of honor and reviewing officer for today's historic occasion, former Senator and two-term Governor of Lagos State, a founding member and former national leader of Nigeria's governing party, the All Progressives Congress, a notable progressive leader, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is a visionary who has made personal sacrifices to advance the common goal in Nigeria and beyond. His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu obtained a degree in business administration, accounting and management from Chicago State University, Illinois, United States of America in 1979. He was on Chicago State University Dean's List throughout his stay at the university and won an outstanding Students Award and also bagged a certificate of merit in accounting and finance. In his final year, he emerged president, Chicago State University Accounting Society. It should be worthy of mention that while still in the university, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu was headhunted for both international and local companies, including Mobile Nigeria. where he held important positions like senior auditor and company treasurer. He left the company to embark upon his political career in 1989. The battery after Nigeria's return to democratic government 3 years ago. The year was Lagos 8 and 2007 remains a reference for good governance in Nigeria and across the region. Among the most impressive of his achievements as the governor of Lagos was his revolution of the state's environmental policies and the creation of thousands of jobs for Lagosians through the private sector partnership program he established. While governor of Lagos include education reforms under which now thriving mission schools were returned to their original owners after decades of government control. Free education and West African Examination Council forms for school leavers, giving underprivileged children access to further education, more career opportunities, and better life prospects. Civil service reforms, which led directly to the introduction of a more responsive and expert-led civil service in Lagos. Judicial reforms and the Lagos Master Plan blueprint, which has been and continues to be followed with great success by all subsequent governors of Lagos. Also worthy of mention is that as a first-class financial strategist, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu overhauled and reformed government and revenue collection in the state, taking Lagos from a yearly internally generated revenue of 14.64 billion naira in 1999 to 60.31 billion naira in 2006. His innovations laid the groundwork necessary for Lagos to have the revenue to improve the state and modernize living conditions of all of its inhabitants. A graceful leader imbued with courage and commitment to justice, Bola Tinubu combines practical, political acumen, strategic vision, and moral principle. When the history of the first 2 decades of the 21st century in Nigeria is written, it will record Bola Tinubu's rare courage and foresight in guiding his party, the All Progressive Congress, to victory in 2015, and how, working with other patriots, he abolished the determined efforts of the then ruling party to turn Nigeria into a one-party state. His Excellency Bola politics game of power. Indeed, his democratic footprints go beyond Nigeria. They span the continent, especially in the immediate West African sub-region, where he has contributed personal resources, advice, and support to help sustain democracy and popular participation in many of the region's emergent democracies. His Excellency Bola Tinubu has served the cause of humanity and expanded the frontiers of freedom and democracy in Nigeria and the African continent. He is foremost nationalist and champions of federalism. As one of the few leaders and champions of democracy with the potential and experience to improve people, Bola Tinubu is the very best man, and today the 16th President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is happily married to his lovely wife, the 16th First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Her Excellency Senator Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu, and the union is blessed with amazing children.
Mesdames et messieurs, Son Excellence le 16e président de la République fédérale du Nigeria et commandant en chef des forces armées du Nigeria, JCFR, est né le 29 mars 1952. Il a été 2 fois le gouverneur d'État de Lagos, pendant laquelle il a fait des réformes durables.
Welcome back, and many thanks indeed for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. As always, you're enjoying to follow us on StarTime's DTH Channel 421, and do well to search us out on our social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. We're getting your reactions as well on our social media platforms. Head out to our Facebook page at Spectrum Television and on Twitter at Spectrum T Online. We'll be taking your messages intermittently as we progress. Well, the major focus of the day has to be the reactions trailing the presidential inauguration of the 16th president of Nigeria, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, otherwise referred to as the Jagaban. Well, the task of leading the new Nigeria beckons following a swearing-in ceremony yesterday that took place at the Eagle Square in Abuja in front of invited world leaders, dignitaries, and of course the political elite here in Nigeria. His Vice President, Kashim Shettima, former Borno State Governor, was also inaugurated yesterday by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Olukayode Ariwola. While the president delivered a powerful inaugural address that came with a shocking announcement of the scrapping off of the subsidy regime. We'll talk about this in the course of the program, but let's take a listen now to the president-elect and now president delivering his inaugural address yesterday shortly after being sworn in by the CJN as the new president of the country.
Subsidy. Unfortunate. The budget that I've glimpsed before I assumed office and what I've had is that no provision is there subsidy. Unfortunate. The budget that I've glimpsed before I assumed office and what I've had is that no provision is there for fuel subsidy. The fuel subsidy is gone. Subsidy can no longer justify an ever increasing cost in the wake of dry resources. We shall instead channel whatever to fund subsidy. Unfortunate. The budget that I've glimpsed before I assumed office and what I've had, compatriots, and I will treat them as such. They represent important constituencies and concerns that wisdom dare not ignore. Some have taken their concerns to court, seeking legal redress. That is their right, and I fully defend that exercise of this right. This is the essence of the rule of law. Over decades ago, our founding fathers bravely gave us this country to place Nigeria on the map of an independent nation. We must never allow the labor of those who came before us to wither in vain. but to blossom and bring forth a better reality. Let us take the next great step. The journey they began and believed in. Today, creed, ethnicity, or place of birth. To my supporters, I thank you. So who did vote for me, I thank you as well. I send my hand across the political divide.
That was Nigeria's new president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, at yesterday's inauguration ceremony with his inaugural address, which many have said has been powerful, full of life, and perhaps would see some shifts away from what we had seen in the course of the 8 years of the outgoing president, Muhammadu Buhari. Well, Nigeria, of course, is usually referred to as the giant of Africa, given its huge population as well as economic potential. But it has some gigantic problems too to contend with, and these are the challenges some say will confront Bola Ahmed Tinubu as it takes over the presidency starting yesterday, and full duties you would expect should commence today. The 71-year-old is unlikely to be faced by these challenges, of course, having severally said since his announcement as winner of the presidential election that he's ready for the task ahead. He's been a two-term governor of Lagos State, revitalized the nation's commercial hub. No easy task, some would say, and is well aware of the issues on ground. But Nigerians, including those who did not vote for him, who he congratulated, by the way, will want to see early results from Mr. Tinubu. And there are some major hurdles he faces along the way to tackle them. And joining us to talk about these issues and more as we mirror through the excerpts from yesterday's inauguration and, of course, the pointers from the president's statement yesterday, which included the icing on the cake, the official announcement of the scrapping up of the subsidy regime, and also the policy formulation of this administration, is what we'll be dwelling on. As I'd like to welcome to Political Spectrum a guest for the day, is no stranger to the program, by the way. Paulinus Peter Mo is live here with me. A very good morning to you, and many thanks for joining us on today's edition of the program.
All right. Good morning, viewers. Good morning, Akwaibom. Thank you for having me, Mr. Rebel. Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining as well. Let's start by asking, you saw yesterday's ceremony. What feeling did you derive from the swearing in of Bola Ahmed Tinubu? It's usually a very colorful occasion whenever we have an inauguration ceremony of this magnitude. Are you among the school of thought that yesterday's event would kickstart the dawn of a new positive era for Nigerians, with optimism that Tinubu will do well or fare well, or was it just a regular ceremony to you?
Well, before coming to that, let me first and foremost seize this very moment to congratulate the president on his successful inauguration as the 16th president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You agree with me that in the run-up to the actually inauguration, considering what happened during the electioneering processes and period, you agree with me that there's a whole lot of analogy and similarities between what happened to the late MKO Abiola and Tinubu. So for the fact that Tinubu has been able to overcome all that, for the fact that he has been able to overcome what I would term the Northern onslaught, whereby they will promise you all sort of things, but in 9 minutes, they will play you out. So Tinubu was able to survive all that. So for me, I want to say very big congratulations to him. And coming to the inaugural speech, I want to say, as a Nigerian and as an optimist, I strongly believe that Nigerians and Nigeria should be in for a new era. And not just an era, but a positive one. And I want to commend the president, because beyond the rituals, of inaugural speech, he seized the occasion and turned it to a platform whereby he was not just talking to Nigerians, but he presented what I will regard as policy statements. And that to us has given us, as he termed in his electioneering and slogan, a renewed hope of what we should expect as Nigerians, as a country. And that for me is a good one. And I want to say the ball has started. And of course, the president, I strongly believe, will do us a world of good.
Interestingly, Mr. President yesterday was in high spirits about his inauguration, and he actually made a tweet to show just how happy and delighted he was. We'll put that up for you on the screens very shortly, so we get to read excerpts from Mr. President's appreciation tweet, if you like, with respect to yesterday's inauguration. It says, "This is the proudest day of my life, but this day does not belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of Nigeria." Paul, the last time we heard something like this was roughly 8 years ago. And incidentally, during the swearing in of the outgone President Bola Tinubu, when he said, "I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody," a lot of Nigerians who heard that statement from Buhari then would have hoped that we now have a president who is going to stick to the task of delivering the mandate expected of him as the president of the country without being, tilted to any side, party, or any unnecessary affiliation, but rather the task of ensuring that Nigeria grows, remains united, indivisible, and reaches its full potential. But some would say we really didn't see that in the course of the 8 years of Buhari. And now we have Tinubu telling us the country doesn't belong to me, it belongs to you, meaning I'm going to work for you. Should we place so much faith on these promises, or do you have high hopes that truly Tinubu will be a man of his words?
Well, for me, I would say it's not just a medium for us to have hope, but it has also served as a parameter for judging his administration. Nobody compelled him to make a statement. It was not under duress. I want to believe the statement come out from his heart. And for me, looking at the statement, it shows some level of selflessness. It shows a man that is ready to work. It shows a man that understands the problems and the challenges. And you agree with me that the President, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is not somebody that is a stranger in the political environment of Nigeria. It's somebody that has tasted power. It's somebody that understands the dynamics of power. So beyond the rhetorics of political statements, I want to strongly believe that the president means what it said. And he will not just mean it, but he will translate it into actions. He will translate it into programs that will benefit the generality of Nigerians, programs that will change the dynamics, the socio-political dynamics of the country. So I want to give it to him. I want to give him that benefit of doubt. I want to believe that he understands what it meant, what leadership is all about, having done it before as a governor. And don't forget, Tinubu as a governor, he was not just a kind of a tea party. You remember the battle he had with the then president. And he was not distracted by that. So there is this hope among Nigerians that having done it as a governor of Lagos State, that there is that tendency for him to replicate what he did in Lagos State at the national scene. And that's the expectations we all have.
Interestingly, one would have thought after yesterday's inauguration, President Tinubu would have seen to completing the order of events for the entire ceremony, which culminated in a banquet or reception for himself, the outgone president, and the invited dignitaries. But it looked like it was already working from the word go, the moment he delivered that inaugural address, which came with a shocking announcement to some persons, if you like. Maybe we expected it, but we didn't see it coming yesterday when he said subsidy has been scrapped. Now, the challenge of ending the fuel subsidy is one that succeeding administrations have had to deal with over the years, but none has come, close to effecting it. The last time someone tried it was Jonathan. And that was back in 2012 when he announced on the 1st of January that subsidy has to go. And it took 2 weeks of protest for Jonathan to rescind that decision because Nigerians were not comfortable with it. President Buhari toyed with that during his administration. And now he's gone. But before leaving office, he said that responsibility would be transferred to the incoming administration. And we saw that happen yesterday with this announcement. Despite our old riches, Nigeria continues to grapple with issues in the petroleum sector. First off, what was your reaction when you heard the president announce that subsidy can no longer be sustained, and as from the commencement of his administration, it was scrapped off?
Well, for me, that is laudable. That is commendable. You see, the problem of this country is our inability or unwillingness to separate politics from governance. Nigerians all know that the state of the nation can no longer, sustain policy of subsidy. It is not tenable. It is not something that benefits the common man. But when Jonathan tried it, unfortunately, the president was among the personalities that fought it. But they didn't fight it because they know it was not the right thing to do, but it was for political reasons. So if we have come to a state where the president haven't known that it's not all the time we should play politics with the welfare of Nigerians, it's not all the time that we should do things that are politically correct, but economically they are not sound, they are not the right thing to do. So having understood all that, having played all the political game and gimmicks, and come to the fact that it is time for the country to actually move forward, then for me, I want to say I strongly support the policy of subsidy removal. That's because if you look at what subsidy is all about, it does not benefit the common man. But what the political elites, what they do is to whip this sentiment, is to whip this fear that is all about the common people, it's all about the masses, that once it is removed, they will be suffered for it. But that's not the truth. I will tell you that subsidy, as it is now, creates a kind of monopoly. And of course, you know what monopoly is all about. That is, it's all about unhealthy capitalism. It's all about the very few, the elites. It's all about 10% of the total population enjoying what the generality of the people should enjoy. But they made the people to believe that these things is actually for them. I want us to cast our mind back. There was a time that communication was not that simple and easy in the country. Before you can make a call, before you can get a phone, that was because the federal government was holding on to that sector. That was because there was a whole high of monopoly. But once that was broken, of course, at the initial stage, there was that hardship and all that. But over time, the market forces took over. Over time, the sector has now been driven by supply and demand forces, which is what should drive an economy. So Nigerians should understand this, that subsidy removal is in the overall interest and benefit of the economy and Nigerians.
Well, there are some persons who may agree with this. Following the course of the campaign, the presidential candidates of the PDP and the Labour Party, Atiku and Peter Obi respectively, also campaigned on removing the subsidy. Everyone seems to agree subsidy has to go, but there are measures that some have said needs to be put in place first before effecting a decision of this nature, one of which has been the constant call to fix the nation's refineries, which has been moribund for years, 5 of them. We had Dangote's refinery commissioned before President Buhari left office, and it's been celebrated across board because of the benefit that is likely to bring. But there are some quarters who say it's not enough to say one refinery would suddenly fix all the problems that the petroleum sector in the country has had. The Buhari administration also managed to secure an $800 million loan from the World Bank, which they said would be used as subsidy palliatives to cushion the effect of removing subsidy at this stage. But there are many who say it's still not enough. Scrapping it is fine, yes, but how are we sure that in the next few weeks and days the country's economy is not going to collapse? We're already seeing cues Few hours after President Tinubu made that announcement, filling stations across the country not selling, some already, selling at very exorbitant prices. And if we're starting like this just 24 hours after he's into office and the commencement of his administration, then who's to say that going forward we're not likely to see industrial actions, strike, as we saw during Jonathan's time, as a way of saying we do not approve of this new move or the method with which the policy was effected?
Well, there's this balance that doing things the same old way and expect a different result is madness. We have all been seeing all these old tricks that I don't remove subsidy, this will happen and that will happen. And over years, that has been the bend of development. That has been the problem mitigating the economy of this country. And I haven't given that opportunity of not removing subsidy, of allowing them to fix up the refineries and all that. I want to ask you, has the refinery been fixed? For the last 8 years, has the refinery been fixed? Do we have improvement in the economy and all that? So if that has not happened, why do we still want to put ourselves in the same position of allowing ourselves to be deceived, of allowing ourselves to be talked in such a way? We put ourselves in the way that these few elites will always capitalize on the ignorance of the people, will always capitalize on the fears of the people. Because the whole essence of this talk is to arouse fears in people, is to force people and compel people to believe, how be it falsely, that removing subsidy will cause hardship and all that. But for the fact that subsidy has been around, what has been the state of the economy, what has been the lot of the common people. So it is high time we try something new. It is high time we overcome our fears. It is high time we innovate. We cannot continue the same old way and expect new things to happen. So for the fact that the president has made that statement and they are accused at our filling stations, for me, there's nothing extraordinary about that. It's only that the business people haven't understood the economy, haven't known that with subsidy removal, that the current stock they have, by the time they finish it, the money at their disposal might not be enough to get the new one, because there's likely to be a change in both the wholesale and the whatever prices. Are you with me? So it's for Nigerians to understand all this and made up their mind to give the new administration a chance to do what is right. For me, there is never a good time to start what is right. There's never a good time. So we are not just to be interested in a product of good governance or a result. It is high time Nigerians should be ready to go through processes that will lead us to the expected outcome that we are all yearning for. So asking me, for me, sacrificing the moment to pass through maybe some difficulties, 2, 3, 4, 6 months, then after that, we now have a country that works fine, is not abnormal. It is what we should all be ready to do. And over time, just the way it happened in the telecommunication sector, where at time passed for you to make a call, the rate was very at exorbitant rate. But by the time that monopoly was broken, and players, private players, came into the sector and actually induced competition, the market, the sector was forced to drive on market forces. So we should allow that to happen in the petroleum sector.
There are also those who have opined that allowing Dangote, for instance, to have his own refinery is not encouraging the steps to break that monopoly that, courtesy of its role as an agency of government, the NNPCL has played over the years. Now having the Dangote refinery, for instance, where we have 5 others who are in moribund states that the government should have fixed but have not done. Isn't that also encouraging a monopoly in the petroleum sector? If you're only having Dangote as the man refining the product, we may not see the success that the telecommunications industry or the aviation industry have had when so many other players were allowed to invest in the market.
Well, allow Dangote to have a refinery. If you look at the multiplier effect, is far outreach the fears people are looking at. By having Dangote refinery, of course you agree with me that it will create a tendency for employment generation. I don't want to talk about that, but the issue is this: if Dangote were to operate in the present petroleum policy regime of subsidy, of course there was a time that Dangote said that the refinery was not for the domestic market. That's because there's no business person that want to do a business at a loss. Are you with me? So there's no how you as a private person, you put your resources together, you put capitals together, say your cost of production is like ₦1 million, then government will come to tell you sell it at 900 naira or sell it at 900,000. There is no sense person that will do that. So what government should do is to provide an enabling environment that will enable the private sectors to thrive. And with that, the masses will be better off for it. Now, if for instance from 80s till date, we have been having government having refineries that are not working, and you look at the yearly budgets, the cost of maintaining a refinery is actually more than the cost of building a new one. Should we allow that to continue? So it is high time we understand these tricks and know that subsidy removal is good for the generality of Nigerians. Having known that the very subsidy that the people are talking about are for selected few. We still buy fuel at whatever price is here. Okay, what happens to kerosene? Subsidy has been removed in kerosene and all that. Why are people not going to strike? Why is there no industrial actions? So enough of these tricks. We should be prepared as a country and as citizens to do the right thing. And of course, there's always a cost implications of every actions and the rest of it.
Well, interestingly, the president also spoke on several other grey areas. He did touch on what he hopes to do to quell the rising insecurity concerns in other parts of the country, plus a promise to thoroughly revamp and overhaul the Central Bank of Nigeria, with specifics to the narrow redesign policy by the Apex Bank early this year, something he said he will review thoroughly. We'll talk about that and more when we come back from this break that beckons. To stay with us. Political Spectrum will continue.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back and many thanks for joining us. This is Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television, and we're still mirroring through some excerpts from yesterday's inauguration ceremony of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the vice or the president of Nigeria in company of his vice Kashim Shettima. While the other event yesterday culminated in a state banquet ceremony at the presidential villa Abuja, where dignitaries from all walks of life, including foreign leaders, were all invited. The U.S. President Joe Biden did not attend the inauguration. An 8-man team, of course, had represented the U.S. government, but he did, in a statement, congratulate Bola Tinubu on his election victory and said he was willing to work with him for a better world. Well, while side-by-side litigations are being entertained at the Presidential Election Petitions Court, which is likely to get a verdict late in the year, everyone expects Bola Tinubu to sit up to the task before him, even in the face of opposition and callous remarks from some quarters who have refused to recognize his election victory or his inauguration as president yesterday. But these are the issues he has said he will deal with. Aside the matter of scrapping of subsidy, the president also talked about addressing the insecurity concerns of the country and also stabilizing the nation's economy, which is where we turn our sights to now first. Paulina Spector Moore is still here with me as well. The president spoke about the CBN, and we know during the electioneering period, that was when we had the Naira redesign policy and the unfortunate impasse that it created. Because of the challenge of availability of the Naira notes, the new ones and the old ones that were mopped up by the CBN. Well, we all know how it eventually panned out. The government eventually backed down to the Supreme Court ruling that said, let's have these currencies run concurrently until the end of the year. Tinubu, in one of his campaigns, said clearly he was going to reverse the policy if he becomes president. While he didn't sound authoritative yesterday or affirmative about reversing the policy, but he simply said it was going to be reviewed and said the CBN would be overhauled totally. What are you emphasizing in the event that the president decides to reverse the policy entirely and say only the old notes should stay, or let's have both of them run side by side? Or will he want to comply with the Supreme Court's ruling that said let it run until December? The big question is what happens after December if the president decides to reverse the policy entirely?
Well, before coming to what happens, I want us to take out time to look at the incidents that led to that policy of the outgoing government. It seems to me that that policy was targeted at selected individuals or some group of people. And you will understand with me that in lawmaking, though I'm not a lawyer, but the elementary knowledge teaches that while making a law, you don't target individual or group of individual. Otherwise, that law will be vindictive. That law will not stand the test of time. So to that very extent, it seems to me the CBN was misguided. It seems to me the CBN, was vindictive in its approach of enacting that policy. And of course, you can all see the outcome, that it did not meant well for Nigerians, that it creates unnecessary panics and hardship. So having a president that understood all this and has come up to say, look, this policy was not properly formulated. This policy was not properly conceived. This policy did not mean well for Nigerians. I'm going to look at it. For me, I feel it's a plus. I feel it's the right step in the right direction. I feel it's one of those things that leaders and leadership is all about. After all, leadership is all about the welfare of the people. So if you are making law for the very people that you are meant to protect, that you are meant to provide for, and the law turn around to work contrary to your expectations or your conception, there is nothing wrong for you to, in my words, swallow your pride and take a second look at that actions and policy.
But
so
there's been a lot of debate about the brains behind the Naira redesign policy, which was initiated by President Buhari. Remember, the policy was first announced back in October last year when the president was in the UK. And it took everyone by surprise when the CBN came up with that policy and the time frame that they allowed for its enactment, including the mopping up of the old notes and the introduction of the new ones. This was a policy of the APC-led administration. It was surprising to see Tinubu in the course of campaign claim that these policies were targeted at him. Even though the government, through Emefiele himself and Mr. President, the ex-president that is, at that time said this policy was to prevent people from mopping up cash to influence the outcome of the elections. And elections that are still largely questionable in several quarters today. And it's Tinubu of all persons who said the policy was targeted at him that won. So a lot of those fishy explanations are reasons why Nigerians are not really optimistic about whatever move Tinubu would likely make with regards to the Naira redesign policy, because It was a policy that appeared to have failed, and it was courtesy of this same APC-led administration. So does it really matter who is at the helm of affairs now, whether it's Tinubu or the former president? The question is, this was a policy taken by the leadership of the party through the federal government, the government of the day. So why should we expect anything different now? Or would you buy into the school of thought that this policy was carefully orchestrated by the APC to have a certain age at the presidential elections?
Well, there's no doubt that the policy was orchestrated by the APC-led administration then. But the point I want us to understand is the fact that if a given party, is in government, and a given administration is also in government, being a product of that party, and you have a situation where a government has transited from one government to another, from one administration to another, you are bound to have, changes in personalities, changes in state actors and all that. And of course, don't forget that personality is a factor when it comes to politics, when it comes to governance, and of course when it comes to government. So the fact that the president that made that policy that did not occur well for Nigerians and Nigeria as a country and our economy was of APC does not necessarily mean that the next government coming in, having seen the negative effects of that policy, should keep quiet and allow it to be because it was his party that formulated it and all that. If you look at what Tinubu said in his inaugural speech, he talked about the issue of politics being over and governance should be approached without party coloration, without ethnicity, without religion and all that. So if that is what the president meant to do and that is what he's actually doing, I would say is in order, is in the right direction. Policies that have caused agony and hardship to Nigerians, not just the Naira redesign, other policies of government that did not mean well for the people should be reviewed. And one thing with the administration of the immediate past president, Muhammad Buhari, was noted for policy somersault, a situation where they will make policy statement, where they will actually formulate policy, and having known that the policy did not go down well, they will come to say a different thing altogether. So inconsistency in the part of that government has also contributed to some of the problems we face as Nigerians and as a country. So it is the right thing to ensure that the government that has just come on board begins well by starting doing what is right, by starting seeing how it could be consistent in its policy statement, in its policy formulation and implementation, because there's no economy that thrives on the atmosphere of uncertainty. When you have uncertainty in the economy, business investors will not want to invest because they don't know what will happen next. They don't know what will happen next. They don't know what will happen to their investment. They don't know what will happen to their money. So certainty is a factor in governance and in government and in building an economy that can attract foreign and local investors to invest in the economy in order to create employment and wealth creation and what have you.
Well, it's a good thing you factored in investments, and solidifying the gains of a thriving and growing economy is critical when you have investors wanting to come in and do business, but investors shy away from terrains that are unstable, either due to political uncertainty or maybe insecurity, which is where we'll turn our sights to now. And it's an issue that Tinubu will have to have a grip on very quickly, because this was a pivotal issue that many said turned the tide in favor of President Buhari back in 2015 when he won that election, because the Jonathan administration was getting hit by, several rhetorics around his inability to deal with the insurgency orchestrated by Boko Haram throughout his administration. And Buhari came in with a promise to deal with Boko Haram and insurgency in general. Word is still out on whether Buhari did achieve success in nipping Boko Haram in the bud. And maybe he may have, but we also saw some other elements spring up in other places. There's ISWAP, there's the issue of banditry, there's a clash between farmers and herders, there's kidnapping for ransom, and no better time than, or no higher rates than any other time in this nation's history, as we saw under the Buhari administration. The question is, how does Tinubu, how is he expected to navigate through dealing with the issue of insecurity in Nigeria, as it's peculiar in the several locations and instances that I have mentioned, including insurgency? And the reason why I'm being emphatic on this is that the vice president of the country, Kashim Shettima, was a former governor of Borno State for 2 terms, and Borno happens to be the major hub of the dreaded Islamic sect Boko Haram, from which base in Sambisa they carried out most of their dastardly acts. He too has severally been fingered for, being culpable or aiding and abetting insurgency, though without proofs, because of alleged links to a famous terrorist within the rank of Boko Haram, referring to the Boko Haram commander Ibrahim Shekarau, and one of the men who masterminded the bombings at Madala in Abuja, who was reportedly seen at his premises. Well, up until date, we didn't hear anything about that story when you have a commander of Boko Haram found in the premises of a sitting state governor for a man who was declared wanted. How can Nigerians be convinced that the Tinubu administration will tackle insecurity and insurgency heads-on when the number 2 man in the country has links that is yet to denounce firmly to a dreaded sect that the government is fighting?
Well. I don't want to go with some of the things you have raised here. But if what you have raised is anything to go by, you will agree with me that the best way to catch a thief is to make a thief your security. Without trying to sound immodest, I want to believe that if the president is having a man that was a governor of a state that was said to believe as being the origin of the insurgency in terms of terrorism that we are having, is on number 2 man or number 2 man in the country, I want to believe he must have had a first-hand experience of security challenges, of how he navigated it, of how he dealt with it as a governor, and that. So that experience will be a plus in the administration on how these securities can be tackled. But away from that, I want us to understand that the major problems in the Nigerian polity is us politicizing everything that happens in the polity. What do I mean? A situation whereby when Boko Haram started and the Jonathan administration was doing what he could as an administration then, as the president of the country, the immediate past president was raising the alarm that that government was anti-North, that government was fighting the North, that government was killing the Northerners, without understanding the fact that criminality should be dealt with. So in other words, undue political polarization was brought into fighting insecurity in Nigeria. So if we come to a level where we can call a spade, where we see a security challenge as a security challenge, not bringing party affiliation, not bringing religion into it, not bringing region, not because we are benefited from it today, not because the people causing these problems are actually causing you advantage over your opponent. You now feel it is okay, it should continue, they should be protected, and that. So if we can deal with those political, what I would call political deceit, insincerity, has been a major problem in Nigeria. Insincerity of purpose. A situation whereby we look at issues from political perspective without minding the negative effects. So if the president will come up and actually sit up and see security challenge as security challenge, and not necessarily the opposition causing it, or the opposition, they are trying to scuttle my government, they don't want me to settle down and all that, I want to believe the president and the administration will achieve a whole lot in that area, in that subsector of the economy. And of course, as you rightly said, no meaningful progress could be made in a situation where you don't have security. Security is everything. No business can thrive. Nobody will want to go to a place where he's not sure of his safety. So security is paramount. Tackling security is what should be pursued vigorously without undue political consideration. So if the president will want to rise above board, will want to rise above party affiliation, will want to rise above board without minding who is involved and deal with criminality the way it should be dealt with. And at this point, I want to believe that the president has a first-hand experience as well, having been a governor of Lagos State. And of course, back then, you know, Lagos State is a state that known for news and what we call the area boys and all that. They all constitute some form of insecurity or whatever. So if he has been able to deal with that as a governor, he should be able to replicate it at the national level and cause us to have a result and cause us to have what I would say success story in this subsector of the economy. Then Nigeria will be on the right foot.
So in the light of that, does it really matter if the president's health status comes into question? Yeah, as you have said, he's done it before in Lagos State, but some would say it doesn't have that youthful exuberance that we saw between 1999 and 2007 when he was governor of Lagos State. The course of the campaigning has seen question marks about his health status, similarly to what we had during the Buhari administration. But good enough, Buhari survived 8 years, so maybe there are expectations now that Tinubu will likely do the same. But in 2021, he spent a lot of months in London treating ailments that were undisclosed. In the course of his campaign and even after his election, he also embarked on a month-long medical vacation. Should we be worried about the health status of the new president, considering the tax before him? These are issues that continue to sweep. The man himself has said, look, Joe Biden is 80 years of age and is still kicking and heading for a re-election in the U.S. So why can't he, 9 years younger, do same?
Well, I want to believe that as Nigerians, we should cultivate this attitude of having confidence in ourselves. So if the president has come to tell the whole world that I am sound, I am healthy, there is nothing wrong with me, we should give him that benefit of doubt. But aware of that, leadership and governance is not really and should not really be about a personality thing. Though a personality is a factor, but I strongly believe that leadership is about having the right team. So if the president could have the right team and delegates power the way it should be, because the fact that he's a president does not mean he should be everywhere or he should do everything. Leadership is about giving the right set of instructions. Leadership is about providing the roadmaps. Leadership is about giving directions and directives. And in doing that, you need, a functional team that will be able to implement that. So if the president will do that, then I would say we should not worry about his health status. Rather, we should be concerned about his health status. So as a Nigerian, I am concerned about his health status. The difference between worry and concern is that I wish him well. I want him to be strong, for him to deliver the work that is before him, for him to deliver the mandate that Nigerians has entrusted him with. So I am concerned about his health, but aware of that, I would like the president to assemble a functional team, players that will be able to not just interpret, but implement his policies and programs in the ways and manners that will benefit Nigerians. And in doing that, he shouldn't take religion into consideration. He should do away with nepotism. One of the problems of the last administration was nepotism. So he should do away with nepotism. It should not be about man, no man. It should be about capability. It should be about ability to deliver. It should be about knowledge. It should be about expertise. What can you do? What are you known for? Not necessarily where you are coming from, not necessarily because you are related to me, not necessarily because I want to settle you. The task of governance shouldn't be about settlement. It should be about willingness to deliver the goods for Nigerians. So that is my expectations about the president. That is what I wish the president could do for the country to move forward.
Well, let's head out now to check out some of your reactions on social media just before we wrap it up on the broadcast this morning with reference to the excerpts from the inaugural ceremony of the new president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Spectrum T Online on Twitter is where you can join us, as well as all of our other social media platforms. Baby Ayobami Tunde says, congratulations, President, but February 25 election day, there was rain. Likewise, today's inauguration, same rain. It's a symbol of comfort and love from God. Jeremiah 14 verse 22. A lot of persons already going religious about yesterday's events. The Labour Party has also reacted, by the way. This is an official tweet from the handle of the Labour Party. It says, President Bola Tinubu's inauguration speech, shallow, without any tangible solution to myriads of challenges being faced by Nigerians. We had to factor that in because the Labour Party had berated the president for his inaugural address yesterday. Temitope Saibu in Naholo says, congratulations on your inauguration, sir. I pray that God's wisdom continues to abide with you. God bless Nigeria. And Zalax Mix says, where are the so-called Nigerian prophets whose predictions failed in matching the actual result of the presidential elections in February 2023 and still foretelling that Ash ABT won't be sworn in today, being May 29th. Of course, that was yesterday. That's from Zalax Mix. And Emeka Nwakola says, Mr. President, congratulations. It was indeed a long walk to victory. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Please hit the ground running. We believe in your capacity to deliver the goods. Interesting tweets from Nigerians, which of course brings an end to today's edition of the program. I'd like to say many thanks indeed, Paulinus, for joining us. And as usual, we hope you avail us your time when next we beckon on you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always been my pleasure.
Thank you very much as well. That's the size of Political Spectrum for today. Keep a date with us if you can. And since the matter of subsidy removal is the hotly debated issue in the country, plus how to tackle interest rate matters, most of that should form the crux of Business 360. Coming up in a couple of minutes, Blood in the Chem will be coming around with the latest from the world of business. But Political Spectrum will be back again tomorrow. Keep a date with us if you can. But from me, Raymond Ita, and the rest of the crew, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.